Hey everybody, you're watching Bull Boom Bear Bust. It is Friday. Happy Friday to everyone watching. January 13th, 2022. We've got a lot of financial, economic news and insanity to get into. Why do I say that? Because we're in unprecedented territory. We've never seen this much debt piled on top or combined with a rising rate environment. The Fed typically doesn't raise rates going into a recession. Of course, they're questioning the fact that there's not a recession, or they're saying there's not a recession yet, or they're putting the question out there: is there a recession? Well, that depends on an individual, right? So let's talk about that just briefly. Then we'll get into the news. Even during a recession, not everybody feels it. There's people that made money during the last recession or the big recession, the financial crisis. There's people that gained a lot of wealth during that time. So if you would have asked that portion of the population if there was a recession, they would have probably said, no, I'm fine. I'm doing better than ever. And actually, I'm gaining wealth. People that came in and scooped up homes and bought real estate, typically did very well. But if you ask most of the population, they would say, yeah, definitely a recession. And same thing now. If you ask most people financially, most people are doing much worse than they were even just a few years ago. So we're sliding into this economic, it's an economic decline. It's not a crash, but things could crash any moment. For example, we've got the FDIC out there. We talked about just a couple reports ago. They're preparing for a big event in the banking system. Now, what's it going to be? No, I think any sort of collapse or freeze up or blackout in the entire banking system is going to be combined with something happening, because they're not going to let the markets collapse, the banks go down without some justification, right? So they'll probably wait for something big to happen, like we saw in 2020 with the health crisis. We saw the stock market came down. That was actually a crash. Of course, it didn't take long to recover because we had unprecedented amounts of printing and rescues that came in and brought the markets back up. And yes, I'm bundled up today. Some of you make fun of me because I'm in San Diego and I'm bundled up like I'm in Alaska or something like that. But I'm not really acclimated to cold weather at all. I don't know how I survived in Michigan for so many years. And actually, I moved to Arizona for about a year and a half for some work out there. And I actually liked it. I didn't think it was that crazy. It was a dry heat over there. So to me, it was much more tolerable than a humid situation. But yeah, I don't take to the cold very well. Now, for anyone else out there that has the wintertime blues, let's be thankful for this. Siberia sees coldest air in 2 decades. Temperatures drop to as low as 80 below. So if you want something to be thankful for, I guess be thankful you don't live in Siberia, unless somebody here is watching from Siberia. If you are, I'm very sorry to hear about your temperatures over there. All right, let's get into what's been happening and what's being talked about. Now, this comes about a couple times a year, sometimes once a year, sometimes more. The U.S. debt limit. Now, to me, this is a nothing burger. Of course, something crazy could happen where there's political upheaval, and for some reason they don't pass the debt ceiling. But guess what? The people that have to decide if the debt ceiling goes up, they don't want to be on the hook for the economic collapse and the freeze up that's going to happen if the debt ceiling is not raised. So I would bet my left foot that it's going to be raised. So again, I think this is a nothing burger. There are some interesting things happening though throughout the left versus right paradigm, but I don't think any of the members involved here are going to be crazy enough not to raise the debt ceiling, because they're going to have everyone on the news, everyone watching, pointing at them for the reason for the turmoil and the collapse. And that's true because if they don't raise the debt limits, this entire economy is based on ever increasing amounts of debt. As soon as you take that away, the unlimited credit card, then you have big problems. The entire scheme basically comes to a screeching halt. And I think most of you know that. And as you can see here, Yellen warns Congress, well, of course, because she knows that if the debt stops increasing, then they've got a situation on their hands. And you want to see the outcome of that, or at least think about the outcome. You're talking about a Mad Max scenario if the debt ceiling is not increased. And we've seen these decisions, get stretched out, and at the last minute there's a agreement that's implemented, at the very last minute. So it is a case where there could be some drama involved, but I don't see really anything coming out of this as far as not raising the ceiling. They're always going to raise it, in my opinion. Let's talk about layoffs. We talked about Coinbase just a few reports ago. Now we've got crypto.com cutting 20% of its staff. If this was just a temporary issue where less people were invested in cryptos, then you wouldn't see such a big reduction in the labor force of these companies, and Coinbase also. So these companies actually see what is happening. They see all of their, or a big portion of their customer base got wiped out with this drop in crypto. Also, a lot of people that had their money in these other exchanges saw what happened over at FTX, so they went ahead and pulled out their money. This was the biggest outflow from all of these crypto exchanges and platforms that we've ever seen in such a short period of time. So, of course, you're going to see more layoffs. This is just the latest announcement here at crypto.com. So, folks, let's just look at the massive amount of things happening together here with the layoffs, the exploding debt, both consumer debt, household debt, government debt, city and state debt. It's all exploding, global debt on an epic scale. And, this is just a matter of time. Now, of course, they can kick the can down the road. They could find new ways to extend this. Here's an example. We talked maybe a week or two ago about the eviction moratorium that was going to expire in Los Angeles, and it was going to expire at the end of January. Well, guess what? They went ahead and extended it to June. So things can be done to extend this. That's why I continue to say, this is not going to be a sudden collapse unless something jumps out of left field that nobody expects, a massive cyber attack, a hack, a hot war happening, a nuke drop somewhere. Who knows what could happen, an invasion of some other country, an invasion of the U.S. So a lot of things can jump out of the woods. That's why, we always encourage here to be prepared. But other than that, this is going to be a slow motion collapse. There's so many things being done to keep the house of cards from imploding. It's going to implode at one point, but, all these things happening here. Let's talk about this Los Angeles situation real quick here. Now, right now, they've given this a 20-day extension, but if you go into the information here, this is actually out of Eyewitness News 7. They're looking at extending it into the summer, and actually they're talking about giving renters till February 2024 to pay the missed rent payments. Here's the thing. Not only are just about all of these people not going to be able to pay all this back rent, they're not even going to be able to pay the current rent that's due for the current month going forward because nobody has enough money, or very few people have enough money. The savings rates plunged here. We're below financial crisis levels. We're the lowest savings rate that we've seen in over 60 years. This goes back, decades. So it's not going to happen. They're going to have to continue to keep these protections in place. Otherwise, it's going to be a tsunami of additional homelessness. I say additional because Los Angeles is already a mecca for homeless if you just drive through the streets up there. All right, so again, I have to bring up the point to all the people out there saying that, the economy is actually really good, that I'm over-exaggerating, that I'm doom and gloom. Why do we have to keep kicking the can down the road? Why are so many people unable to make their monthly rent payments, right? Because the consumer is tapped out. Millions of people across the nation are still under these moratoriums, and most people don't do that. I haven't seen any other channels even reporting on this. And that's why maybe most people think that things aren't really that bad, because they're missing, big stories like this, right? Of course, if you live in the Los Angeles area, you probably see it on the local news pretty frequently. But on a national scale, most people don't realize that these things are still happening, that these protections are still happening in a lot of U.S. cities. And there are some articles out about that. Here's one right here out of 538. Rents are still higher than before the pandemic, and programs are drying up. They're drying up in some places, but other places like Los Angeles, they keep extending it. Also, more layoffs in the news here, so things are really coming together. We're seeing more reports of layoffs here. Alphabet Robotics Division hit with layoffs. Verify executives, department shakeup and layoffs. We've got the creator of Tech's big layoff tracker says more cuts are on the way. Absolutely. We've got out of TechCrunch here, news aggregator Smart News layoffs 40% of people in the U.S., some also in China, and also some are going to be in Japan. Folks, it shouldn't be too hard to figure out that we're headed into some very, very serious times. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. Just put a few pieces of the puzzle together. The problem is a lot of the business news networks aren't really talking about these types of things. They're just focused on the stock market, the stock market, the stock market. Well, problem is most people don't have much money to invest, especially in the stock market. And it's becoming more and more to where these news networks are only going to be geared towards the top 10% or the people that actually do have some money on the sidelines that are even able to invest in these markets. And I just want to put this out there again. I encourage everyone to be on high alert and be prepared. Although I say it's a slow motion collapse, something could snap and some situation could arise that could cause this entire house of cards to come down overnight. And all of us could wake up here to chaos any day. It really wouldn't surprise me if it happened tomorrow, next week, something that soon. Otherwise, other than that, a sudden event or situation like war or blackout or a massive grid down situation scenario, I continue to see this slow motion decline. But all the news and evidence is in front of us that things are not going to get better anytime soon. And even if you're doing good today, what's going to happen when most of your customers or most of the source of your income is going through a personal recession themselves? And remember, the powers that be, they're going to try to usher in a hellscape of a new monetary system, if you ask me, this digital system where it's going to be no freedoms at all, hardly, no privacy at all. We hardly have any left, but what is left is going to be gone, if the controllers have their way. But I don't think the people are going to have it. I think we're going to go through some major social upheaval and unrest here in the United States when things really start hitting the fan. And I think it's going to happen this year in 2023. All right, we've got the FDIC out there talking about bail-ins and making a big announcement for bank failures and who knows what. So be on high alert, folks. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this news. And thanks for being here, for supporting this channel. Hopefully we'll read your comments down below. Please let me know what you see happening here with these layoffs, with the debt levels, all the stuff we talked about today. Other than that, we'll talk to you very soon. Big love. Bye for now. Keep stacking and